Mandy came into my life like a strike of lightning, kind of immediately fell for her. And a lot of it had to do with, I saw somebody that was incredibly confident, intelligent, and very successful at an early stage in her professional life.
So I started working for the American Heart Association in 2011, and I started working for the American Heart Association because I lost my dad that year to a massive heart attack. And all I could think about is, how can I save other people from losing their father? And that's when I started learning a lot about stroke that I had not known before. I realized 38 weeks pregnant, actually 37 weeks pregnant, I had put a little bit of pressure on myself. We had just moved into a new home.
I had come home to take her to her 38-week checkup. If we kind of back up, call it 10 days, her blood pressure had been elevated. And so she was going in every couple of days for like non-stress tests to basically just to monitor and make sure that nothing was going wrong.
I was working from home that day to reduce, trying to reduce my blood pressure and relax. I was like laying in bed and my head started to hurt. It was like, and like anybody, I'm like, I know it will fix this. I will take a shower. That will do it. And then in the shower is when I started noticing something was wrong. And I came out, but my face wasn't drooping. So I was like, well, my face isn't drooping, but I did start to feel like overall body weakness and speech difficulty because memories were fading out. And I could no longer walk upstairs, like back up. I had to just lay down on the ground. And that's when Matt came in. And he came downstairs and saw me laying there. And I was like, something's not right. I need to go to the hospital. I could be having a stroke.
And she said, hey, Matt, who did we have dinner with last night? And it was with some close family friends. I remind her a couple of times, she kept saying, who? And like looking at me with a puzzled face. And I just thought to myself, this isn't right.
I'll never forget that moment because I walk into this hospital, this is your first child and you think it's gonna be one way, and you walk in and I just started to hysterically cry because I was like, something's not right. Something's not right. This isn't typical. What is gonna happen to me? That's the last memory I have of walking into the hospital that day.
I'm sitting in a waiting room by myself and the code blue light goes off and a nurse came in and said, hey, it looks like that your wife suffered a seizure and may have suffered a stroke, but they have stabilized her. They decided to do an emergency C-section. Once they did that, then they took Mandy back in for the MRI. So at that point, the neurologists had me come back down and just essentially explained what was going on. And at that time, Mandy had been, intubated and she was unconscious but stable, and they were preparing to airlift her. The surgeon came out and said, we didn't know what would happen when we brought her in, but it does look like she is going to survive. He explained the clotting from the from the bleed, that it was, intertemporal lobe, into kind of some of the brain tissue and then down in and around both of her ventricles. He said that they were able to clean that up, that they had removed part of her skull, and that there was some brain damage.
12 days later is when I woke up, and my mom comes over and she sits on the bed with me and she said, Mandy, you've had a stroke, but you're okay. The doctors did a great job. And she said, Mandy, Dean's okay. And I remember thinking, Dean, my son? Like, I had a baby? And from that moment on, I thought, I gotta do whatever it takes to fix whatever is wrong. But I just kept thinking to myself, when am I gonna be okay? Like, I can barely speak to him right now. I can barely speak to anyone. And I'll never forget one of my hardest words still to this day. And it's so funny because Dean is so good at this word. And I always am thankful because I can't remember it, was fire hydrant, fire hydrant. I almost got that tattooed on my body when I finally learned that word. It took me 2 years to remember fire hydrant. And I remember thinking it's the little things like this that mean so much in life. Because every day I get to look at my son and have a true conversation with him now, and sing him a song and read him a book is another day that I'm so thankful that I'm here. Every day, I'm so thankful that I'm here to live another day with him and my husband. And I was so lucky because no one gave up on me, like no one. Everybody within Denver, I mean, they had a helping hand.
And they really rallied behind us, you know, to see the level of care and support from the local community. You know, Mandy had built some really strong relationships with some, you know, local people.
When I think about all of the funds needed for the American Heart Association, Stroke Association, I've never understood it more until obviously this happened to me. Because I thought every piece of this was something that had been created by someone who did the research necessary to keep people like me alive. I'm blessed to be able to have another day, and if I can help anybody else have one, I'm gonna do it.